Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Freebirth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
We are kicking off this year with a fun episode with 4 previous guests from the podcast. We have Jessyl, Amanda, Jordan, aka Phoenix, and Layla. All 4 of these badass women were guests on my first 2 seasons and are back to tell their new birth stories. We get into the challenges of trying to get birth certificates after a free birth, what it's like integrating a new child, having older kids at birth, birthing outside, and sexy labor outfits. Join us for a fun chat with 4 intuitive, wild mothers to welcome in 2021. All right, welcome everyone. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
So we are joined today with 4 women who all have been on the podcast before, have all free birthed previous babies, and we're calling this a reunion episode because they have gone on to free birth even more babies. Woo-hoo! And so, so we thought it would be fun to just do a little reuniting. So we have 4 women. We have Layla, Amanda, Jessyl, and Phoenix. And so today, everyone is just going to share their stories. So let's do a little quick intro of everybody. And why don't we just do it in the order that we said you guys were going to share in. So just share a little bit about who you are and anything quick that you want to offer to the space. Jessyl?
Hello, my name is Jessyl. I'm a mom of 4. I'm 30 years old. I free birthed my last 3 children. And I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Awesome. Amanda?
Hi, my name is Amanda. I live in Los Angeles, California. I have 2 lovely daughters, and both of them are free birth. I'm 42 years old. I had Juniper at 38 and Acacia at 41. And yeah, it's been a blessing. I'm so happy that I free birthed both of them.
Mm-hmm. Layla?
Hey, I'm Layla, and I'm 33 years old, and I have 3 kids, and I've rebirthed all of them actually on Maui, and I've been living there for a while, but now I'm back on the mainland visiting and exploring. My first free birth was 7 years ago, so, and all 3 of them were immensely different, but profound and just incredible in every possible way. And so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Emily.
Yeah, I'm just remembering all of your stories as we sit here together, and it's just filling me up with a lot of warmth and joy, and excited to hear the new stories that I haven't heard yet. I will put in the show notes for everybody the earlier episodes that all of you were on, so that women can go get acquainted with deeper parts of your story. So yeah, let's kick it off. Jessyl, number 4. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's been very busy all the time. So my 4th child, unexpected. Again, I guess that's the recurring theme with all my births. None of them were planned. I found out at a movie theater. I remember. Yeah, I was at a movie theater taking out my older children out, and I had gotten my period once, and I was awaiting my second period. And I had gotten this wonky period. It was like, I got it, but it was really light and weird, and it went away. And then it came back, and I was like spotting, and it lasted like 10 days. So I thought it was just, I'm still breastfeeding and I'm working and I'm doing a lot of things. Maybe it's that. But I had stopped. We were on the base theater because my husband's in the Navy, and I went to the commissary because they sell a super cheap, like $1 pregnancy test. And I was like, let me pick one up before the movie. I'll hop into the movie theater bathroom, piano test real quick, and go into the movie. And yeah, way to watch a movie.
Oh my God. Wow. Did you did you whisper it to your husband or what? Did you keep it to yourself?
He wasn't with me. He wasn't with me. So I think I sent him a picture and I told him, what the hell? Keep your cum to yourself. And I went, so the entire time I'm watching the movie, I'm just like, thinking about,
oh my God,
we're going to have a fourth child. But yeah, it was my nipple soreness. I started getting aversion again. And that was how I found out I was pregnant with my third, was that I was having nipple aversion. So as soon as like it all started clicking in my head, I was like, I need to know right now. Like, I can't just wait. I couldn't. I was like, I need to take a test because I need to know. And yeah, that was that. So, we went back and forth on, I did have a really hard time accepting this pregnancy. I went back and forth, deciding whether I even wanted to keep it. And, at the end of the day, we're just like, we know that life will continue and we can work, around it. And as hard as it seems in the moment, when you take it a day at a time, I was like, I started to just accept the pregnancy, but it took me a long time to get my head around it because I wasn't ready to have a fourth child. We had just opened up a new business, a restaurant, and I was the one working it full time. So I was just trying to wrap around my head the logistics of, having a pregnancy, having a new baby, and knowing that I was not willing to work while having this baby. I was like, I'm not willing to have a child and go back to work in 2 months or 3 months. Like that to me was not okay at all. So yeah, I guess our focus shifted into, we need to find somebody to run it for us. So I don't have to be the person there, running it, which we did. But that entire pregnancy, I wasn't really focused on the pregnancy because I was focused on the business and running the business. And it wasn't until I found a manager around November that I finally got to step back and just realize, holy snap, I am pregnant. I'm going to have a baby here soon. And then, the retreat in Dominican Republic happened, and that was beautiful and amazing to finally be able to just, be around other women and soak up the pregnancy. Like, it was almost, I went the entire pregnancy kind of like, it's just another thing there. Like, I wasn't able to just focus on, I'm pregnant, I'm having another baby and bringing this baby. So it took, like I said, it was a long time for me to just settle into, I'm going to be a mother again, and I'm going into this. And I think because of all of that, this, like, her emergence was one of my hardest emergence from all my pregnancies. And it's because I wasn't mentally ready to do that. Like, as much as I want to say, yeah, I wasn't. I never cursed so much during labor. And after I had her, I was like, why was this so hard? And it was just like, even though 8 months went by, it was 8 months of me just going through life and kind of ignoring that a baby was coming. And, to me, that was a huge lesson that it doesn't matter how many other births you've had. If you don't take that time to go inward and do that work, it will make the labor that much harder. And I was the entire time, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, get this baby out. But yeah, it was the day it happened. It was around 10:30. I think we finally got the kids down that night, and we were all laying in bed, and I was having different sensations. I had a lot of, prodromal labor leading up to this one too. So it was kind of going back and forth on, is the baby coming? Is it not? Is it is it coming? Is it not? But that day I got this sensation to where I felt it wrap from my back to my front, and it would go downward. And I was like, that's really different. I haven't felt that before. And I asked my husband to look at my stomach because my stomach was doing like this wave motion. It was really weird. I had never seen it before. And she had been on my right side the entire time. And this time with those wave motions, she kind of looked like she was moving more centered. And I was like, hey, maybe it's time, because she looks like she's coming to the center now. But I was like, whatever, let's just go to sleep. If it happens, it happens. And around 2:30 in the morning, one of my kids woke up, and that led to the other two waking up, and they all came into our bed. And I started having the sensations all over again. And I told my husband, when the boys were asleep, please put them back in their bed. But my daughter, my third, my youngest at the time, she would not fall asleep. Like, she was awake. It's party time. Let's play. And then I started getting stronger sensations again. And then I started thinking, okay, I think I am in labor. And I think like 30 minutes into that, she did start annoying me. And I was like, okay, I think I'm in labor, because she's annoying me. Like, her clinginess is starting to bother me. And I was like, I need you to just handle her so I can do my thing.
So is this like early morning?
Yeah, this is like 3:30, 3:45 in the morning.
Okay.
And yeah, as time went on, they definitely got stronger. I soaked in the bath for a little bit, but I didn't want to birth there. So I had set up in front of my altar in my room, my birth space. And by 4 in the morning, I knew for sure that, this was it. So it was about 45 minutes into an hour after everything had started. And yeah, I was just on the floor on all fours, moving around, whatever felt comfortable for me. I had given my husband the GoPro at one point so he can record, but he was not paying attention. So he threw it to my daughter, and then my daughter wouldn't give it back to us, or else she would scream. So we never got any recordings or anything. I was like, yeah, sure, just let her have the GoPro. So she was just playing on it the entire time instead of us trying to record the birth. And I had a pillow that I kept hugging and leaning up against, and I was leaning up against my bed, which felt good. And it went really fast. When her emergence started, though, when I didn't even feel the ring of fire, which was, I think, one of my only fears this pregnancy was I don't want to feel the ring of fire. And I didn't feel it. But when she came
how
out,
is that possible?
I don't know. I did not feel it at all.
Wow.
I don't remember feeling the ring of fire. I felt her slip out. But one thing was I felt like she got stuck halfway, and my contraction was ending, and I wasn't willing to wait for the next one. So I roared, and I squatted down, and I pushed her out, and before that contraction finalized. And yeah, she came out pretty quickly, and we didn't know she was a girl. So she came, I was close to the ground, and I just let her slip out of me. And I remember I was in a daze, I couldn't focus. I didn't know what I was seeing and feeling. It was almost like I was somewhere else. I didn't feel like I was there in that present moment. And I had to come back, and I kept touching her and feeling her. I almost felt like I had my eyes closed, but I know I didn't, because that's how hard it was to focus in that moment of what was going on. And I was telling myself focus, open your eyes. See, I was wait, my eyes are open. Why can't I see what's going on? And I was touching her, and I felt her umbilical cord, and I was trying to feel it was a boy or girl. And that's when I finally felt her, and I was there's no balls, there's no penis, it's a girl. and I screamed, I was it's a girl. And my husband cried out, and he started crying because he was so emotional and happy, because we were really hoping we'd had another girl. So we already had 2 boys and 1 girl, and I really wanted her to have a sister. So yeah, and my placenta, while I was on the floor, my placenta slipped right out. It probably didn't take more than 2 minutes before it came out. And that's been the same thing with my prior 2 free births, where my placenta slips right out within 2 minutes of the birth. So normal there, for me.
And all your kids were present, yeah?
Yeah, so we woke them up probably 20 minutes before her emergence. And they got really excited and they were sitting on the bed waiting and watching, and they were really excited. And I think right before she was born, they all ran away to go watch TV. And I was like, wait, guys, no, come back. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's going to happen. So they came right as she came out. They were all there. And then we turned on the light and they were all just, playing with the placenta and looking at the baby and just like asking all the questions. And it was wonderful, beautiful, simple. And I couldn't have, asked for anything else. And then after that, we got to just lay in bed and eat and relax and enjoy our new baby.
So how has it been transitioning to an unexpected fourth?
It wasn't as bad, I guess. Like, the more kids you have, it somewhat gets easier. And I had, it was at the beginning of this whole pandemic thing. So one of my biggest fears was being home alone, with the 4 kids. And since it started at the beginning, my husband was on leave for at least 14 days. And then his job said they were all going to work from home and it happened to be 12 weeks. So I actually had my husband home with me for 12 weeks, which was, amazing because I didn't expect that. And that's not something that, I thought I was going to have in-home help for 12 weeks. So it all worked out.
Wow. The weird little gifts inside the tyrannical lockdown.
Absolutely. I said, I'll take it. Now that I like everything else, I was like, I'll take you being home for 12 weeks.
Yeah, that's huge. Because otherwise you would have only gotten, you said 14 days?
Yeah, I would have just gotten 14 days with him home with me.
Wow.
And my mom came down for like 4 days to like the weekend. She was born on a Wednesday. And my mom came down a weekend, like 4 days, which was really helpful too. She like prepped a bunch of meals. I also had friends bring me meals and things like that. So I had support from, some local community and friends.
Wow. Yeah, I'm reminded of I when we used to have the Facebook group, I remember there was a thread of grand multipara women, women who've had 5 or more children, and they were all kind of talking about it. And one of the women commented who doesn't have 5 or more and said, how is it to add after 4 to add a 5th or a 6th or so on? And unilaterally, I will never forget this. Unilaterally, they all basically said, after you've had 4, you don't even really notice.
I can say that.
How is that even possible?
It's like they slowly start doing more. And then, you also stop caring so much about every little thing. And it's not that you don't care, but you realize you can't. You would go crazy.
Yeah, it's chaos. Yeah, totally.
Like you can't care about every single little thing. So it's just kind of like partially you realize not everything needs to have your 100% attention, and they start growing up and they start helping, and it's a combination of things.
Yeah, and I think it's such a joke that this like idea in our culture of enlightenment, is like a guy going by himself out into the mountains, to just meditate with the trees. It's like, no, it is having 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 children, in your home and being able to fully surrender and fully let go and be in that, I mean, maybe that there's 2 paths there, but awesome. And so you have totally wild pregnancies. You don't engage in the system at all. Is that right, Jessyl?
For my last one, I didn't, for my last child, I didn't engage in hospitals or doctors or anything like that. I went twice. I went once to the base nurse just to get a confirmation of pregnancy. And I had gone to Planned Parenthood because, like I said, it was a thing. Like, we didn't know if we wanted to get or not. But I ended up just getting, once again, a confirmation of pregnancy, which it's been 6 months. I still don't have a birth certificate because all I had was 2 confirmation of pregnancies. So I'm still dealing with that with the health department here. It's like, hopefully soon. We'll see. I'm still waiting. Every day I check my mail, waiting for the birth certificate.
Annoying. Layla, you have a crazy story, don't you, about trying to get a birth certificate was it with your son, your oldest?
Yeah, with my first one, just because I was very unfamiliar with the system and how it worked. And so I was living totally off grid without even like a rental agreement. So I didn't have any proof of residency. And then I didn't have any proof that I was pregnant. And then this little boy comes out with like bright blonde hair and like the most piercing blue eyes. And me and my husband have darker hair and darker eyes. And so we didn't even have proof that he was our child. So we went through a year-long process, and it ended up being a late certificate of birth, which it counts as a birth certificate, but it's a different process. And I mean, it was funny. Even the woman that we were working with on Oahu, she found out that we had written a book about the birth, and she read it, and she was even trying to show it to her supervisor. And she's like, see, look, they wrote a whole book. It's a true story. Just look. And they still wouldn't even give it to us. So it was so hard the first time, but then the second two were so easy. And it took a long time actually for me to go in with this last one, like 4 months or so before I went to see Emily, you know, the man at the vital statistics office. And he's like, why did it take you so long to come in? And I was like, I couldn't think of her name. And he just laughed, and like, it was no big deal this time around.
Yeah.
I just got it that day. But yeah, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah. You have to like, you submitted like photos of you pregnant?
Yeah, everything. I had to get letters from like reputable people on the island that had lived there for a long time that proved that I was pregnant. And it was amazing.
God.
That's why I joked to my husband, because they sent me a letter. I said, I should just send them a picture when she came out and we're all bloody on the floor together.
Yeah, just like the crowning photo.
I was like, what do they need?
And then,
believe me now.
that is, and then maybe they'll stop asking.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. So, Phoenix, welcome.
Well, hello. I am Jordan. I'm also known as Phoenix Wild on Instagram. And I live here in Hawaii with my family. We're on the island of Kauai. And I have 3 babies. My first birth was 27 hours. He was an attempted home birth, crazy story. And last 30 minutes ended up being born in the hospital. And my 2 daughters were born here in Kauai on the island, and they were semi-free wild births, also crazy stories as well. And yeah, my girls were 4 hours, so 27 both to 4. So I don't know if it was the island there, and yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear this third one. We'll make sure to put all of your previous episodes in the show notes, so this will be a fun way to catch up on all of it.
Okay, great. All right, so it happened so quickly. I'm like, how old was my daughter when all this happened? But she was 1 when I conceived Meta, my third daughter, and we already had back-to-back. My son is 4 now, but my oldest and my second are 18 months apart. So that already happened quick. And we were, thrilled and overwhelmed and excited. They were all consciously conceived, so we knew that they were coming. So we thought we were good for a little while. And busy with 2 toddlers, and my husband ended up going on a trip to visit his great-great-grandfather, and actually knew for some time that he was going to be there to help him transition. And yeah, he ended up being there with his great-grandfather and, great-great-grandfather. And in his transition, he's in his 90s. He's like an ancient dude, yeah. So yeah, he goes and I don't know if he's met him before, if this is his first time even meeting him, but he goes over there, travels over there, so I'm home with the kids, la, 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 la. And while he's there, I mentioned to him before he mentions to me, I'm like, I think we're going to have another baby. And, I'm saying this to him, and he's like, I'm expecting him to be like, okay, chill out, And he's like, whoa, I also got the same feeling. So long story short, in his I'm getting chills, his great-great-grandfather's passing, he passed while my husband was there, and he transitioned with him, and it was beautiful. When he returned home, of course, he was gone for 2 weeks, so I missed him in the whole 9. Then, but when he came back, we came together and consciously conceived my third daughter. And I will never forget just the feeling of conception. The wind blew the door in. It was crazy. So we call Meta grandfather sometimes, and we truly believe that he just whisked his way right back in. And yeah, so that's how she was conceived. And it was definitely, again, like I said, a surprise again, because we just did this twice.
Wow. And I also know a little bit about you, in that your time on Hawaii had some pretty wild ups and downs, as you shared in the last episode. And so it seems, and correct me if I'm off here, but it really seemed also like such a big journey of creating stability. And as you're creating family, really rooting down and figuring out what that looks like for your family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, still to this day, and I'm sure Layla can attest to this, just living on Hawaii in general, is housing is very, very unstable unless you own. And the landlords here will not let you forget. And we're the only family of color that we know of on the island. So it just makes it that much more interesting.
Literally the only family of color?
Literally. There may be other families, but there's no completely Black family here on island. So it's just a very unique situation. And we don't like to call it racism every time we have to move or we have to transition. We don't like to do that. We're not used to that. But it's definitely, the harassment, the prejudice, people thinking that we're selling drugs or that we're too loud or that we're doing all these things, and we're just we're trying to create stability for our family. So yeah, even this, I've moved 4 times this year since Meta's birth. So yeah, that's the lifestyle on Kauai. And so it still was that way when Meta was born, the house we were in. When I was pregnant with her, I knew I was not going to give birth to her there. And Antoine at the time was super frustrated because we just got there, right? And he was like, no, we're going to have the baby here. It was a great, beautiful house. And I was just like, no, I don't know why, but we're not going to give birth here. And we ended up leaving that house shortly before I gave birth to another place. And I gave birth closer to the water. And I think that's what she wanted anyway. So,
okay. Wow. So what's your pregnancy like, and how do you arrange your birth? I'm remembering now from your previous story that you had met a really wonderful woman and you went and birthed at her place with your second child. So what do you arrange for this baby?
Yeah, so for my second, we were homeless at the time. So we were kicked out of our place when I told our landlord that I was in labor, that my water had broke. She asked us to leave. So we immediately had to leave. And the woman who I gave birth, she opened her home to us, and I gave birth at her home with the help of our midwife, Aubrey Jones. She's amazing. And she also did my third birth. So so we reconnected with her for the third birth, and we kind of, we're like, yo, we got this, we only want you to be there if we ask you to be there. And she was completely down. And, but I would say my third pregnancy was, I wouldn't say my worst, but I didn't really like being pregnant each time. I'm not really one of those people that's like, pregnancy is great. I'm very uncomfortable, very emotional. And the third one was just really intensified. It's really, really hard for me to be pregnant and to be a mother to a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. It was just really, really difficult for me. I was really, really tired. I remember taking naps every day for at least an hour, and then still being just tired. And I also was raised to make everything from scratch. My mom was making breads and cheeses and all kind of things. So naturally I do that. It's hard for me to go to the store and buy these things. So I'm doing all this stuff. So I was just busy and exhausted and and grumpy. And I really honestly didn't really think about birth until I was like maybe 6 weeks away. And I actually started YouTube blogging it, just my experience, because I realized that I wasn't really focusing on the birth aspect since I was, like I had this in the bag. I really wasn't worried about anything until about the 8th month. And then I started having feelings of fear actually at birth. It's like, well, hold up. I do this again. I just started feeling like panic and like, doubting myself, it feels silly because it's like the third birth and I should be like, I felt
I think how you should have been. I think that this happens for every mother that after they've had a baby where it's like, especially if they've had positive births, it's like, I got this in the bag. And then at some point there's this point of contention that's like, oh shit, a baby still has to come out of me and I'm still going, like, it doesn't matter how many, you still have to go through the gates of hell.
You do. And I think I realized that and I psyched myself out the whole time, just being preoccupied with my toddlers that I got to do this again. So yeah, I really started diving into why I was afraid. And like I said, I started documenting it on YouTube. And I haven't even gone back to look at the footage, and I just went on to how I was feeling mentally, physically, and spiritually. And it really helped me to focus on it in a way, even though I still felt like I was dismissing it and not really thinking about it. And yeah, I had visions of laughing during the birth, and that definitely happened. I actually vlogged this birth, and I don't have any footage of my first two. I think I have one photo of my second. And
wait, what do you mean you vlogged it? Like you made the video public?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Yes.
I didn't know that. I'll have to go see it.
Yeah, it's really fun. So that was fun to like really like be like, all right, let's make this a memory and like, have it down and look back on it. Because my first two births, I wouldn't say it was not joyous, but it was really chaotic. It's just a lot going on. And then for the third one, it was actually like felt a little more planned, if that makes sense. And we danced through the labor. When my water was about to break, I knew it was about to break, and I just was like laughing, and and so it's like, this kind of side eye thing, like this is happening again, so it's like, I don't know, we all kind of just dismissed it, that it was happening, and then and then it was happening, and it was happening quickly. I do remember at a certain point during all of my births, I go very quiet. I can't talk, but in my mind, I'm, formulating and trying to use my voice, and I just can't. So I do remember at this third birth specifically that I wanted a little bit more hands off, but I was being loud. I was screaming a lot. And so I guess that alerted my midwife that I needed her help, but I didn't want her help. Unfortunately, I couldn't say that. And if there's anything that I would have changed about that birth, I would have wanted her to not have helped me at all.
What did the help look like?
She was just applying some pressure to me during contractions. And I guess I could say now that I didn't like it. Like I said, I just didn't want her to bother me at all. But I was being loud and I guess dramatic. And
you were in labor.
I was in labor, so
yeah.
And we kind of had planned for my husband more to be catching the baby and doing more of that. But he's my rock, but he wasn't trying to get down there. I think he forgot that he didn't want to do that either.
Like, beautiful in theory,
right? He's like, let me get on in here and help you guys.
And so were your older children present, or was it the middle of the night?
Yeah, it was. So I started labor like 3 p.m. and the active labor kind of started around 5, and I gave birth around 9 p.m. And so the kids were out with an auntie in the living room dancing. I actually have that footage on YouTube. They're just dancing. And you can see my son at certain points, he would be dancing and covering his ears and still like trying to twerk because I'm screaming away. So it really made it fun for the
Yeah.
It's so funny. She made it fun for them, so I'm glad that they weren't all in the scene, but they were in the next room while it was all happening. And but I gave birth the same way I gave birth to my daughter, who actually their birthdays are day apart. So I gave birth to Meta on the 7th of January, and Ayimi's birthday is on the 8th of January. So her birthday present was a baby sister, which is really cool. And so, it's just interesting, the similarities of their births. So they both were 4 hours long, and I gave birth also in the same position. I can't do water. For me, water is very aggravating during birth. Even getting in the shower, like before, it's like I have this dreamy, like, oh, maybe I'll get in the pool. But whenever it's suggested, I'm like, no, I don't want to water. No, I need to stomp. I need to feel the earth. I like to pound things, I really like to pull in that energy for whatever reason. And so for my daughter's birth, I was holding onto the neck of Antoine and pulling down, kind of as if I was on a rope. And I just pulling all of the energy out of him, help me. And that was really supportive for me with the third birth as well. And so I was holding onto his neck and just, man, that position is it's just so good, that the pressure of pulling down for me. Mm-hmm. And out she plopped. And I was just communicating with Meta so much during this birth. That also was a difference with this third birth. Way more, all right, you got this. Here we go. You're doing a great job. A lot more communication with her. And I swear when she plopped out, she was just delighted to be here. And I was in the video, you hear me just like, yeah, you did such a good job. Like, you did such a good job. Wow, to be birthed. What an accomplishment. You did that. I was so proud of her. And man, I haven't actually talked about this birth for some time. So this has been a real treat to just go back into that. And I definitely also had a lot of support here on island. I cannot complain at all. The day I went into labor, I had one of my sisters on the floor scrubbing my floors for me, because I just wanted everything just clean.
Yeah.
And she just came and showed me love. Another sister, Yoni, I think she's been on this podcast as well. She came and brought me juice and oranges and
she's pregnant now, right? She's
pregnant now. It's so funny. Every time I'm pregnant and she gets pregnant, and I'm like, all right, this time I'm so you can stay over there with that.
That's how it goes. So how has it been adding this third? I heard you say earlier that you've moved 4 times since she was born. So that was January. So she's 9-10 months old.
Yeah, she's 8 months now.
8 months. Okay. So, right. Yeah, I could do basic math. So how has it been adding a third, being a mom of 3 small children? And it sounds like you've had to move a couple times. And how has it felt in your family to be a family of 5 now?
Yeah, I would say the hardest time for the transition for us had to be the first week when she was here, where, I'm obviously in bed, not moving, not doing nothing. And we just kind of was like, this is kind of fucked up. This is a lot. Why are all these children here? What did we do? It just felt like so much. And we just were really questioning, what did we do? They were running everything. And we were I just felt like a bad decision was made.
Oh my God. Jessyl, do you relate? Jessyl's laughing. I think she might relate.
Totally. My husband, just yesterday, my husband was like, where did all these kids come from? Are they going away anytime soon? I'm like, no. I was like, they're ours. All 4 of them.
That's funny.
That lasted for a little while. And then afterwards, she just became this just so cutie for the kids. And they just started becoming interested in her. And right off the bat, right? For my first with my daughter, he had no interest in her for 8 months. He did not like her. But Meta, because she has an older sister and naturally she's nurturing, I think that really changed the game. And I mean, Nakomi now, he's that's his baby. And they also look exactly alike. And so they just have like a really great connection, and all of them. So I think that's really what's helped our transition, that the children like each other. So like
God.
they're just, yes, thank goodness for now, right? Until they start sharing clothes and yeah, we'll see. So that's been supportive for our transition. You know, it's definitely chaotic every day. There's no kind of routine. We have things that we want to get accomplished every day, and sometimes they get accomplished, sometimes they don't.
Totally.
And that's just the beauty. Like, you know, she's, you know, once you add on more and more, you just start, you know, it kind of feels like, am I neglecting this third a little more than the first two? But it's like, you just start to like, it's not as important if they're cleaned up every time they're eating. Like my first two, I feel like whenever they're eating, I'm like, not a speck of food on their clothes or anything. The third, I'm like, good luck. Yeah. Good luck. Like, after you're done, we're going to go hose off in the sink. It'll be okay. Yeah, I never ever bought any like canned baby food. Like, you know, it's all organic that I'm getting, but any of like any packaged stuff, I never did that. But I've been exploring that with Meta, because it's helpful. It's like nice to just throw it into the pile. I can't be making stuff from scratch all the time, you know. So it's definitely like, I feel like I find my self-care times way easier with the third, because I'm not prioritizing giving my all to the kids, you know. I'm working on this with my two toddlers. You guys go outside and play. I don't care if you're arguing. I don't care if you need something. I'm going to clean the house right now and have this time be with your sister, not screaming toddlers in your ear.
Yeah, and this is also about, you know, your family growing as like an entire organism, where it's not just about you and the baby, which obviously the pregnancy is, the birth is, and early postpartum is. And I think the larger your family grows, it's like one big living organism, you know, and yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and the more confident you are as a mother, and the more, you know, other people are involved, meaning the siblings. Yeah, I think that it just
everyone's finding their place within the family. You know, I think Nakomi way more about his big brother role. He really feels confident about it, because he actually can do things he's for, you know. So he's doing things like he can help feed the baby. He can get things for me. He can help his sister. He can, you know, work on his own behavior to be a good example for his sisters. And yeah, it's just so awesome to see them all just find their roles. And yeah, they're all sleeping like in the bed together. Like I said, I'm kind of trying to get out of their bed, and yeah, they're just,
all three of them are in one bed.
All three of them. I'm having
that's
like
so
Meta.
Cute.
Yeah, the bed's up against the wall, and Meta's like by the wall, and the two are kind of like bordering the side, and that's where I would be and my husband would be, and you know, we're trying to sleep together in a bed by ourselves. Actually, it's like the goal right now. Yeah, because what I've learned is that the newer baby, you know, the waking up to nurse thing, sometimes they're not waking up to nurse, they're just waking up to see if you're there. Or they're waking up to go pee-pee, you know, so either or. So I'm just checking to see if she's peed instead of just offering the breast. That's something, I'm not offering the breast every 5 seconds like I was for my first two. I'm just not doing that. I'm not. Because they're not all needing that. But it's kind of, you know, kicked me in the butt with the first two, because it was me giving it as an emotional response. But Meta, I've dealt with her way different. And now sometimes I get my feelings hurt. If she's upset, sometimes I'll sometimes instinctively offer her the breast. And she's like, if you don't get out of here, I need a hug. I need a snack. You know, I'm trying to do what I need to do. Yeah, she's another breed. I'm like, not used to. I'm like, okay, I'll just tuck my breasts back in. I'm not used to that, you know. Like she's
but
a
it makes
bullet.
your life easier too,
It
right?
does.
Because then the baby is, you know, more content with somebody else, you know, just playing with them versus, oh, she just needs my breast.
Yes.
I've noticed that too, having more kids and not going to the boob for every because they cry, because they move. Oh, they need a boob. It's like, no, they don't always need a boob.
They don't. Yeah. That's the trial and error of, the first baby, the first, we're in this paradigm where, breastfeeding's like, go hide. Don't, so we're like breaking out of that, we're like wanting to share and, really hardcore. So I have we should all have compassion for ourselves for that. And, it is what it is. It's obviously not negative to be offering the breast, instead of the alternative. And I'm grateful to have been able to breastfeed my two for as long as I did. And I think it's going to be so way less with Meta. And I'm very excited to not be nursing a toddler. I'm very thrilled about that. And yeah.
And we have to be open to new iterations and every baby's different. Who you are when that child comes is different. And it's all kind of part of the one living organism of the family. You're a different stage of motherhood with each child. And it's beautiful to be open to that and to let each story be different. How could it not be?
Yes, I agree.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
Love hearing it.
My little minions waking up. They're like, what you doing?
Uh-huh. All right. Amanda, two little girls.
How
are you? Yeah. How are you doing?
I thought both of them would be boys. I thought I'd be a total boy mom.
Really?
Yes. I was way off, which I think the longer that I have them, the more I realize it's something I need to, they're teaching me. Because I think I was very disconnected from my femininity. So I think they're here to help me reel that back in.
Awesome.
Juniper was, I guess, 2.5 when but almost 3 when I conceived. I conceived in April of 2019. Yes. Right. And I actually had heard about the retreat, I think right before I figured out that I was pregnant. And I was like, yes, I'm going. I'm totally going to the retreat. I signed up, I paid my money. And then I realized I was pregnant. I was like doing the math in my head. I was like, oh, the baby's going to be like maybe a month old when I go. Is this going to be possible?
Oh my God. Also, just spoiler alert to the very end, you were still pregnant, like 3 weeks before the retreat. And I was emailing you like, no pressure, but have you had the baby yet? Oh my God. It worked out perfect.
It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. But yeah, it was still in my head. And like when I get strong yeses, I go for it. So I had to check in. I was like, okay, I'm pregnant. Should I just read back and say, can I get my money back? I don't think it's going to work. But I was like, no, this is going to be perfect. I have to do it. So yeah.
And she was the total like mascot of the whole retreat. This like perfect 3-week-old baby laying in the flowers and leaping. She was like a,
but it's close enough. Yeah.
Oh, was she 5?
Yeah.
Why did I think she was 3?
She's so tiny.
She's so little. So how was your pregnancy?
It was good. I did a wild pregnancy. My first time around, I did the obstetric check-ins. But still had a free birth. That was my plan the whole time. But being the first time mom, I was like, I'll just go and be checked out, which, in my first story, you'll find out that was the wrong choice. But so this time I went to, did total wild pregnancy. I didn't even take a pregnancy test. I just knew I was pregnant. Just like Jessyl said, I could feel my nipples were tingling, and I was still nursing Juniper at the time. So yes, I was nursing Juniper at the time, and I just had this huge aversion to nursing her. And I'd never had it before, and just felt really creepy. Like, this is wrong. I don't like it. I had to talk to her about it. I was like, I'm really sorry, but I don't know if mommy's going to be able to nurse you much longer. This doesn't feel right. She was sad, of course, and I realized I didn't have my period. So I was like, okay, I must be pregnant. And I was like, I don't want to take a pregnancy test. I'm just completely wild and just see how it goes. And I told my husband, I was like, I think we're pregnant. We didn't do a conscious conception, even though I knew about it, but I could have had a strong feeling that this was the year we were going to do it anyway. So in some ways I knew that another baby was coming. And the pregnancy went really well, just the same as Juniper. Like I don't have morning sickness. I didn't have any like adversities to anything. So it was very pleasant. I've enjoyed being pregnant. There was one moment about 28 weeks. I don't know if I had food sickness or something, but there was just one night I just had this I almost felt like I was going in labor. Like I was pacing and I felt very nauseous. And I've felt dizzy. Yeah. And so I started looking up the symptoms, which you should never do. But of course it talks about maybe you're preeclampsia. And I was like, maybe it's a check and maybe I need to drink more water. I need to eat more food. So I think the first time around, I was way more into making sure I was doing everything right. And I was listening to more about medical things and what to expect. And this time around, I was more about intuition. So it's interesting that the comparisons, the first pregnancy, I was more in my head. And the second time it was more about my heart and how I was feeling. So obviously it was completely fine. I just started drinking more water and I had more food in the morning. And I don't know what it was, but didn't matter. I just checked in and knew everything was fine. So yeah, and the pregnancy was great. Trying to think. So yeah, Emily had emailed me, I think, December 30th, I think. I was like, hey, are you still pregnant? Yeah, but any day now. And because I didn't have a wild pregnancy, I still needed to get a birth certificate because I'm going to the Dominican Republic. So I had to get a birth certificate because I needed a passport to go to Dominican Republic. So otherwise I would have not even worried about getting a birth certificate. But in state California, you have to have a physician or midwife confirming the pregnancy. And I had the hardest time finding a physician or anybody wanting to just give me a letter confirming that I'm pregnant. I went to 3 different free clinics. The doctors wouldn't even come in and see me. The nurse people would take, do the blood pressure, take your weight, ask some questions about why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then I'd send them the documentation directly from the Vital Records office, what I exactly need. You just your name, when's your last birth, your period, and confirming that there was a pregnancy. They could have just given me a pregnancy test or whatever, but none of them wanted to do it. None of them refused. No, we don't want to be held liable. What? Hold liable for confirming that I'm pregnant? That makes no sense to me. Yeah. So I had the hardest time finding somebody. I ended up remembering Fishburne. What's his name? Fishbein. Yes, thank you. From previous podcasts or my studies back in 2015 when I was first pregnant, and he was still in Santa Monica. I emailed him and he's like, yeah, no problem. Come on in. Of course, he's a little pricey because he's a private practitioner, but it was worth it to me just because of having the peace of mind. And he actually ended up coming the next day after Acacia was born. Very hands off, he didn't even touch the baby. He just asked me some basic questions, fill out paperwork, and he was on his way. So it worked out great. But anyway, so the night before on December 31st, I could tell something was definitely changing in my body because I had way more energy than I normally did. I was very tired throughout the third trimester. And part of me felt maybe I should go out and watch the fireworks. It'd be a last chance to be a family of 3. And there's this beautiful fireworks in Marina Del Rey. And we usually have to walk a 1.5 miles. And my husband's like, I don't know, because if we have to walk there and then walk back, and you tend to have babies pretty quickly, I don't know if this is a good idea to go out the night before, or, you never know what happens. So we didn't go, but I was remembering up all night, just having a lot of energy, and I had a hard time sleeping. And then the next morning, we always have a tradition for on January 1st, we make breakfast, and we have this jar of memories. So we pull out memories of the year and read them to each other and just remember the good times that we had the year before. And we watched the Rose Parade.
So that's just what we do every year for January 1st. And as I was watching the Rose Parade, I was sitting on the couch and cross-legged, and normally it's very comfortable, but I just kept moving around and I couldn't get comfortable. And I was watching the parade, and nothing was like, I felt like I was in a daze. And my husband kept looking at me and he's like, "Are you okay? You seem different." And I was like, I think the baby's coming. He's like, "Really?" Because before, in my first story, he wasn't even around when I started having like contractions. He was at the bar having fun.
Well, you were at the bar with him, and then
I just left,
and you like felt a little funny, so you drove a truck home and were in labor. I love your story. And then she's calling the bar, trying to get her husband, telling the bar owner, whoever, like, send him home. I'm having a baby. Yeah.
Yes. So we didn't go to a bar this time, but we were at home. And yeah, so he said, he told me it was very different being there for the whole entire thing. Cause before he walked in and I was already like past the transition. And this time it was more like I was building into it. And he was like, I could totally tell a difference. Like what you went from being jovial and happy to like, you were just quiet and like just kept moving and uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, it's interesting to see that perspective. So yeah, it was, and I knew it was coming, and I told Juniper, I was like, I think Mommy, the baby's coming today. She's like, really? Okay. She was not excited about it. But I told her, I was like, well, listen, like I had planned to I had planned to do a placental painting. And so I told her, I was like, I've been saving your placenta when you were born in the freezer for like, since you were born. So I have like this placenta in my freezer for almost like 3.5 years. And I was like, let me show it to you. So I got it out. And she's looking at it. It's all frozen. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And this is all while like, I'm all just starting to like feel stuff, but I'm trying to talk to her and just kind of get her involved. And we started watching videos about placenta paintings while I'm like leaning on the couch and rocking my hips back and forth. And so we watched these placental paintings, and I was like, you can pick the colors that you want. She's like, oh, this is cool. I want purple and green and silver. I was like, okay, no problem. And eventually it got to a point where just like being next to her, trying to have a conversation with her just wasn't happening. And my husband ended up putting on some like fun music and dancing together. And even the music started being really annoying because it was like, fun, happy music. And I wanted like something a little more peaceful and calm. I was like, I got to change the music. And he's like, okay. I changed out. I was in my pajamas and I wanted to feel sexier or prettier. So I put on like a purple sarong and a lacy bra. And I started just pacing up and down my hallways. And I think at one point I stopped and I started being really loud and primal. Like with Juniper, I was just very quiet and peaceful and reserved. And this one is just the transitions was a lot stronger. Like with Juniper, it felt like more like a rolling a wave, like a body wave. And this one felt like it was a wrench, like a towel being wrenched. It was a lot weird, just different feeling. So yeah, I once I got the pretty, like felt pretty, I was walking around. I wanted to be outside and in the sunshine.
I love picturing you in a lacy bra and a purple sarong. It's such an amazing labor outfit.
And so I wanted to be outside. I wanted to feel the sunshine and like feel my feet on the rocks. And eventually, I felt dripping. And neither one of my pregnancies, I had like a strong, just like a splash. It was more just like a peeing basically. So I was able to be like, I don't know. I really wanted to see it more. So I was outside on the rocks and on the cement, and I wanted to see the liquid. I wanted to, I don't know, just see it and be close to it for some reason. And eventually I got to the point where I knew that it was time. And I was like, I told my husband, I was like, okay, turn the shower on. I'm ready. It's go time, basically. And I did the exact same thing. I went into the shower. I was standing up. I almost broke the handlebar on the shower this time. I was pushing down on it a lot more than I was the first time around. And I told him I wanted to see the emergence of the head. So I'd gotten this mirror, but not thinking that when you have a hot shower on, it fogs up a mirror. So you really couldn't see anything anyways. I think I had him like brush his fingers over it so I could see a little bit of it. But yeah, and I kept telling him, take pictures, do some video. And he was like, but I need to be here to catch the baby. I was like, yeah, I know. Because I didn't want to catch it this time. Or the second time. I didn't catch the first time, but I felt more concentrated on holding on to the wall and versus like trying to reach down and catch the baby this time. Yeah, so I remember as the head was coming down, yelling out to Juniper, your baby brother or sister's coming, come look. And she yells back, no thanks. Because she's in another room like watching something. She was not no interest in it whatsoever. I think she was scared too, because I was kind of yelling and making animalistic noises. So I think she needed some to her own space too. But once the baby came out, and Joe would basically like help to guide her out. I didn't know if it was a boy or girl, and her yoni area was very swollen. And they're like, "Are those balls?" And he was like, "No, it's a girl." I was like, "Oh, okay." Because it just looked really big. I thought it was balls. I don't know what it looks like. And it held her, and she's cried right away, and she was pink and beautiful. And same thing, I just sat in the shower for about 5 minutes. It felt like everything I was doing previously when I had Juniper was pretty much the same thing it felt like with Acacia. It's just the difference was the way my body was moving her out. Juniper was the roll, and the Acacia was more like a wrenching towel. It was just different. That was the only thing I remember distinctly was different. And yeah, as soon as the baby started crying, that's when Juniper came in to check out her new sister. The placenta took a lot longer to come out the second time. The first time it was only like maybe 45 minutes, and this one was like an hour and a half. We burnt the cord, and Juniper helped with the candle. But as most everybody does, burning cord, it takes like 20 to 30 minutes to burn it. So she lost interest probably after a minute or two. And yeah, it was wonderful not having to feel I had to go anywhere. Because the first time I was like, we got to go to the hospital. We went like 5 hours after Juniper was born. And it was so lovely just to be at home and just not have to think about doing anything else other than enjoying the baby and being there. It's huge. It was a huge difference. And I loved every part of it. I loved, it was short, same as Juniper's was like, I guess from start to finish, it was 5. And then Acacia was about 3 hours, start to finish. So it was definitely, I think the hardest part was just not being able to feel like I got enough like spiritual energy. Like I felt like it just was so fast. Like I didn't have a chance to really like just be, but I think that I really enjoyed just like birthing by myself. Like I didn't want any other energy there. And most like half the time I was telling my husband to like take Juniper away so I could be by myself for a little bit. Yeah.
So I have to ask, when you got into the shower, did you keep your Lucy bra on and your sarong or were you totally naked?
No, I stripped down. The beautiness of it was no longer needed. I was ready to get in the water and just get wet. Yeah.
Get it over with. Yeah, totally. Awesome.
So yeah, the hardest part I think was afterwards. We had to focus quickly on getting the birth certificate in order to take this trip. So I had to do an emergency, but like expedited trip down to the Vital Records office in Los Angeles, and then we had tried to get the passport. The Los Angeles expedited one was closed, or there's a waterlog in their printer, so we had to drive down to San Diego for a special trip and spend 2 days there. But it was fun. It was worth it. Whoa. Like whatever we had to do to get this passport, we did it, and I'm so grateful that we went to that retreat, because it was absolutely magical, like a wonderful way to spend my postpartum with all the women and the energy. And the food and just, wow, the beauty there. I'm looking forward to hopefully doing that again sometime.
Yeah, little did we know the world was going to explode right when we all got home. God, I know. We're supposed to all be heading to Bali soon for our next one, but that's not happening. Well, you know, we got this land now in the Southeast, so we'll just have to recreate the vibes on the land that we got. So if nothing else, you can road trip to our magical place and we can do it there. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me share. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a joy. Layla, number 3.
4 now, right?
Oh, fourth story. Yes, I'm at number 3, baby. I was like, wait, what? You're pregnant?
No. I'm going to wait for a little bit before another, if there's another, which there may be, but I'm really, really content with 3 for right now. It's an amazing, amazing, complete feeling that we have and it's so sweet. And
so when I last saw you, you were doing this big land project on Maui. You had the 2 kiddos. Your daughter was maybe like a year and a half. She was walking around but you were pregnant because you were planning. I remember I'm having this one specific memory of having your partner, I'm forgetting the word, but he was going to create basically an outdoor birth tub of sorts.
Yes.
In this off-grid kind of imaginative, incredible way. So that's kind of where I leave off with you in what I know about your story. So just tell us about that pregnancy and what you guys created for that birth.
That sounds great. Yeah. So for all of my births, they've all been wild pregnancies and free births. My husband caught our first baby boy, and I would say that with the first pregnancy and childbirth, that so much of my attention was just on, can I do this, more than trying to really create it a certain way. It was the first time. It was, way back, I guess, in like 2012 or around then. And I had not heard of anyone free birthing. I didn't know anyone who was doing it. And so it was really a pretty daring kind of adventure for us, but also what felt so right to us, because we knew that, we had conceived this child, just him and I, and we knew that we wanted to and were able to birth him on our own. And so we were so excited to be going about it that route, but it definitely was filled with a lot of growth and seeing through fears and understanding how the mind works and really just testing, like, can I do this? Can I really just give birth on my own and really not know much about it at all and still succeed? And so once I successfully gave birth to my son, I got really excited about my second child almost immediately after, although I didn't get pregnant again for a year and a half. But I got excited because I knew that I could. And now I knew that I could not only do that, but I could create it how I wanted it to be. And so then for my second pregnancy, I really focused on having a pain-free birth, having an orgasmic or an ecstatic birth. And, I would wake up every single day and I would ask, what do I need to do today? What do I need to think today? What do I need to believe today? What do I need to eat today in order to have an ecstatic birth? And it was everything. It was my everything. Every moment of the day was going towards this. And I had the good fortune of not really needing to or really wanting to work during that time. I kind of had left graduate school and I wanted to just be pregnant and just enjoy it and just enjoy motherhood and not be focused on a career for a few years until I was ready. And so anyways, I ended up, in the previous podcast, I share a lot about how I literally laughed my second baby out, my girl. And she was still in her amniotic sac, and the bubble burst as she was born into this water underneath this bamboo tree. And it was so magical. And when I gave birth to her, had what I consider a really profound kind of awakening experience that was almost too much for me. It was almost, I almost felt too open. And I felt like any of my past trauma that I had that I was holding in my system was like so profoundly trying to leave, to the degree that like at times I almost, was just overwhelmed with like joy and tears. And I knew that there was a lot of healing going on, because I not only knew that I could free birth successfully, but I also could create an orgasmic or an ecstatic birth.
Yeah. And like heal.
Yeah, exactly. And that was part of it, was like, I wasn't just wanting to have an ecstatic birth. I was wanting it to be the most fulfilling birth possible. And I didn't realize that with making that intention, with setting that intention, that there would be some hard work that needed to be. And so after I gave birth and I was having all these different experiences, I created this nonprofit organization, which I was kind of working on when we first came together. If you remember, Emily, Loving Birth Organization. And it was kind of like a nonprofit that was created with tons of free resources and information that were about, really trying to provide a lot of information and support to women who, I believe, any woman that goes through pregnancy and childbirth, no matter how they do it, has this awakening experience and has the potential to heal all of their past trauma that might be still in their body and really move forward into this just incredible motherhood experience if they're able to have the time and the space and the support to process it. So that was a really big deal for me. So I was creating this free telecourse, and I got really, really immersed in it. And to the degree where I was like waking up in the morning and doing my morning meditation. And I was like, okay, so if I were a pregnant woman and I was going through my first trimester, what would be really supportive for me right now? And I was really placing myself in that position. And it just so turned out that it worked. And I became pregnant. And it literally was like just hand in congruent with this telecourse that I was creating. And I mean, my husband and I were totally open and welcoming of having more children at that time, but we weren't like trying. And so it was semi-surprise, but also semi-known it would happen eventually. And so the timing just linked up perfectly with this. And my work was really kind of blossoming during my third pregnancy. And so it was different in that regard, that I was working almost the entire time. I was doing these meditation and yoga retreats with this for pregnant women, and with this amazing French yoga teacher on the island. And we were creating these amazing courses. And I had my private practice where I was doing a lot of motherhood coaching and coaching for pregnant women. And also I am a Reiki practitioner. And so I was teaching a lot of Reiki and giving a lot of Reiki. And I was working all the way up until like a few days before I gave birth. And so that was a lot different of an experience, because I was so busy, and it wasn't like this, I just get to like relax on Hawaii and like just be pregnant and just eat fruit and enjoy life. It was more like, I was working and really in demand. And then I was also creating an entire homestead on this 7-acre parcel, which Emily got to come see, which was so special to have you there. And part of what you had mentioned was the lignothermal water heating system.
Yes.
So we had...
Did you guys pull it off?
And so I said birth, cool. I was so angry, because I wasn't really that angry, but I was frustrated because we didn't have hot water. We were totally off grid. And that was how I've had all of my pregnancies and births. And I've loved it that way. And that was like totally by preference, like not because of destitute or of anything in that regard. It was just like, I want to be with the earth and like have no distractions and be simple. And anyway, so for our second birth, we had a water birth, and we had to fill up the water inside of the tub a few days before we gave birth because we wanted clean well water. And so we had to borrow it from a neighbor. And so when the labor started happening, we actually made this huge fire. And I was like carrying pots of boiling water to the back and forth from the fire to the tub, trying to heat it up. And I was so excited because I was like 9 months of like waiting for finally getting a hot bath, like I was just like praying for it. And then it didn't even heat up enough. And I ended up giving birth to my second daughter before the water had actually gotten hot enough. And so for my third, I was like, I am having a hot water birth for sure. And I was like so determined. And so we had some tree work done on our property, a bunch of really big eucalyptus cleared so that we could plant fruit trees. And we ended up mulching all of that. So we had these heaping piles of mulch, like humongous piles. And my husband and I would sit there at sunset and we would see these piles steaming. And we figured that there was heat that could be utilized in some way. And so after doing some research, we realized that the decomposition of the wood was actually creating heat to a degree that it could actually heat pipes up and give us hot water. And so we dug out this, what we called Maui's first hot spring, and we lined it. I surrounded it with all of these beautiful rocks from these really special places around the island. So it was super blessed. And yeah, it was a hot, hot bath that I got. And it was so, so nice. And, so anyways, backtracking a little bit, the pregnancy was so full, and I had the great pleasure of being in some circles with you, Emily, while you were pregnant, and then also while I was as well after you had gone on to give birth. And I remember just utilizing this technique that you were sharing about what would your ideal birth look like. And I really took it seriously, and I really kind of tuned in. And I remember saying I wanted it to be a really, really easeful birth because my second was kind of almost too fast for me. And I wanted to really take my time and enjoy it and just have it be a gradual, easeful process. And so I just saw it, and I saw it happening during the day, and I saw it happening outside and beautiful weather. And it was exactly what I imagined. It was exactly right on. The only thing is that the labor was very long. Like I should have specified probably because it was super.
Like how long?
So the day that I went into labor was the day before she was born. And
wow, third births are so weird.
Yeah, they are. And as you know, we didn't have a due date for this one. And so it was a lot different of an experience in that regard too, which I could talk about if we have time.
Yeah, please do. Also, I just really quick want to, Jessyl, do you remember how long your third was? Was it like a weird one?
My third and fourth were both 2 hours.
Oh, sure. Okay. That's fast.
Like you just can't really figure it out after.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really enjoyed not having a due date. The reason that I did that was because I just had one like very light period, which was the first period I had in like 2 years. And then after that, I just kind of, didn't have it. And that was kind of normal for me. And then after a few months, I was like, okay, I think maybe we need to check. And I, had checked, and it said it was positive. And we had like a period of maybe like 2 months or so that we thought the range would be when she was born. But to be honest, I really, really liked not having that pressure. My second daughter was almost 3 weeks late, and I was totally accepting and comfortable with that because I felt like I was totally healthy and capable and that nothing was wrong. And so I trusted.
You're like the queen of leaning into the unknown, like all of your stories, and having met you as well. I mean, I feel like you are such a beautiful example of what can happen. And it's not for everybody, but what can happen with what's the right word? Yeah. Just like the real surrender of not needing to know, and what happens in that space of just not knowing. And there's like this, nobody ever really knows because our culture is all about knowing. And so you getting to intentionally choose to just, kind of like throw your hands up and just be like, I think I'll have a baby sometime in the summer or whatever it was. I mean, a lot of women, in our community say like seasons and stuff, which I love so much. And a lot of women I know de-emphasize the 40 weeks. But you were really one of the only women I've ever known who truly didn't track the weeks at all. And really just had kind of a range of, I just think that's really courageous. And it's very interesting because it is, in my mind, it is one of the markers of really returning to, like really being outside the system, right? And being outside this kind of idea of controlling through time and through assessment and all of this stuff. Again, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's the culture in which we live in, but it just seems like with each of your pregnancies, you just went more and more wild to this point where you were just in it. You were just inside the experience, in a really, really cool and super inspiring way.
Thank you. I really just love you, and it means so much to hear that from you. And I feel super blessed, and I really feel like it to me has been more like, rather than necessarily being like this advocate for like, I'm going to have this wild pregnancy and a free birth and like, all of that, although it's very noble and it's so powerful and one of the most incredible ways that I feel like women, especially mothers, can reclaim their autonomy completely. I do feel like so much of my journey has been about the truth and about really understanding like, what is it that makes us afraid and that makes us make these decisions that maybe later we regret? And how can we really take like every second of the day and say like, where am I doing this throughout the day? Like, did I move to make that choice because I was feeling something that I was uncomfortable with and that I just didn't really understand? And so therefore I went this one direction when I just as easily could have just asked for the truth within it and seen through any illusions or any concepts that I had, to the degree where I can really go the route that I want to be going and create what I want to create. And I think if anything, that like, I just have a lot of confidence in my ability to create what I want and to trust God or trust the universe or trust this higher power to really mirror the work and the understanding that is in the foreground for me, which has led me to sit through my pain and to not say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much pain, I need to go to the hospital, something's wrong, because I recognize like, that's just a thought in my head. And what happens if I can just be with this fear and I can see, where does that take me? Does it take me, to the hospital, or does it take me to right here? And then once I pass through that fear, what decision am I going to make? Am I still going to feel like I need to go here or there and get this confirmation? Or am I going to be okay and just keep trusting and see what happens? And in my experience, Emily, with all of my pregnancies and my childbirths and life in general, the more that I trust and the more risk that I've taken, the more that I am just filled with blessings. And it's, something that I hope that if anything, that I can just inspire women to just do, even in like these minute ways throughout the day, to just say like, you know what, do something different today and really see if it's rewarded. Like, step out of your comfort zone to the degree where like you're afraid. And you really have to call upon some kind of trust in something other than these people that you're surrounded by, and strengthen that faith and just see where your life goes. Because at least in my experience, and I think that it's like this for everyone, I have just been, affirmed and supported again and again in such incredibly glorious ways. So yes, the night before my daughter was born, not even the night, I think it was maybe like 3 p.m. or so, I ran to the grocery store to get some food and I remember getting this like super spicy horseradish mustard sauce. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling like a little bit ready. Let's spice this up and see if we can get things moving. And so I went home and I made a nice big salad and made this nice dressing. And right after I ate, I was like, oh my God. Okay, so I felt this shift in consciousness, you could say, to the degree where I was like, okay, I either just got food poisoning or I'm in labor. And it was like just this energy that took over me, and it was incredible. And I had this blessing way, which I wish you could have been at, but you were gone by then. And all of my sisters brought beautiful gifts, and one of them brought this Mother Mary candle, and she told me to light it as soon as I went into labor. So that was the first thing that I did, was I just went and I lit this candle, and I just felt, and I've felt this with all three of my pregnancies, that like the minute that I go into labor, I feel this almost like protection, as if Mother Mary and like every mother that's ever been on the planet, and every mother that will ever be, and every mother that is like right there with me. And it's this sweet and gentle and like just incredibly supportive, loving energy that I just feel around me for the entire labor. And I wonder if other women have that experience, and I'd love to hear about that, because I really think it's available to all of us. But anyways, so I spent that day just kind of easing into it. And I was like, it's way too late in the day. I don't want to give birth tonight. And so I literally felt like I slowed it down, and I felt so in control of, the speed that it was happening. And I was like, I really want to get a good night of sleep and then just try at it in the morning when I wake up refreshed. And so that's what I did. I slept the whole night, and I woke up a few times and was feeling it intensify. And then as soon as the morning came and I started walking around, and I actually was like harvesting fruit and doing some different things, it got more and more intense. And I noticed something this time, which was different with the others, where I actually spent quite a bit of time alone when I was in labor. And I realized that when I was totally by myself, I felt hardly any pain, if any at all. And the minute that I would go around other people, even just my husband and our kids, I would start to feel more. And I think it was just the ability to focus so intensely inside of myself when I was alone. So that was an interesting thing to note. But I liked being with them, and so I included them, and I stayed outside of the water as long as I could, and then eventually got in. And she was born pretty quickly after I got in the water, within probably 15 minutes or so, underneath the Hawaiian sun in the middle of the day. And so it was about a day-long labor, but super easy,
but with a full night of
peaceful.
Sleep in the middle.
Yeah, and that was pretty nice.
Amazing.
And my water didn't break with her either. And so that was another neat experience, just to kind of have to like guess what's going on, because you don't have that main cue of what's happening. So you never know how long it's going to take, but it was beautiful.
And the water wasn't too hot?
No, it was perfect. It was just so divine. I felt like a queen.
I remember you suspecting in the earlier part of your pregnancy that it was a boy.
I did.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I felt a little spirit, not to be too woo-woo or anything, but right after my
we're way past that, Layla.
Okay. I haven't followed you that much lately, so I'm not sure. But so after my second pregnancy, like a few days after I gave birth to my daughter, I already started feeling a spirit of a little boy. And I was like, wow, there's a little boy that already wants to come. I was like, absolutely no way. I'm sorry. And I got his name, and he kept kind of knocking, and I was just so not even close to being ready because of what I had mentioned before, just about kind of having this awakening experience and being like, what on earth is going on with me? And just wanting time to process and integrate that. And so I was like, you know what? If you, little guy, want to go on to another family, please do, because I'm not even close to ready. And So anyways, a year had gone by or more, and I just kind of assumed as soon as I got pregnant that it was him. And also this little girl, the third being, was so energetic and really felt exactly like my son did when he was in my womb. And so I kind of energetically assumed it was a boy, but it turns out she was a girl. And I was so happy because I really deep down wanted another girl. And I'm so in love with her. She's like such a little tomboy, just fierce little, just angel, but like so independent and just tomboyish, but also really feminine and gentle. And she's so beautiful. And so I was super surprised and really happy. And that's why it took so long to name her as well, because I was kind of shocked. And I also lost a bet to my father because I told him that I would come visit him if it was a girl, because I was so sure that it wasn't. And so
funny.
I still owe him some money, and
That's funny.
Other than that, I was so thrilled.
So when you birthed her outside in Maui's first hot spring, was your partner and your kiddos around, or were you alone? Or I'm trying to picture it.
Yeah. So my husband was with me and my son was with us, and my daughter had fallen asleep taking a nap. And so she wasn't a part of it, but yeah, my son was, and it was amazing. I was totally just like, you guys be quiet. I want to be in my own zone,
Yeah.
And they just were there with me. And I actually didn't birth the placenta until they left. They were by me for maybe 15 to 20 minutes after the birth, and it wasn't coming out. And I was just ready to get it out because I really try to focus on that immediately after I start feeding them. And I really want to get that out in proper timing. And so I was just, like, you guys, I'd like a minute to myself. And as soon as they left, it came out like a minute later. So I think it's really just about focus and just really having the space to be able to do that safely and in the right time.
Beautiful. So how has it been adding a third? What is that? I heard you say that it feels really complete, and you were obviously on this special piece of property in Hawaii, which sounds so lovely. So how did the kids adjust, and what does it feel like now to be a family of 5?
Well, first of all, it was so smooth, and we had such a beautiful little ceremony and baptized her with some Valley River water a few days after a kahuna came, and it was so incredible. And then, so just a really smooth transition. My eldest son and my daughter are so helpful, and we got this little wagon. We call it like a little farm wagon, and she loved riding in that. And so we put a bunch of blankets in there and just drive her around the yard wherever we were, whether we were working in the gardens or harvest fruit, or, at a certain point, my husband and I built this entire temple that is just incredible. It took our whole 3 years of being at that land to be able to get all the wood and harvest it the way we want to and craft it the way we want to. But we actually rose the roof on our own, just my husband and I, with the support of our 3 kids, just working together and being there with us. And, we just had so much harmony, and at times it was challenging, but for the majority of the part, we were able to do that because of how smooth it was. And like some other beautiful goddesses who were sharing previously said, it really does seem to get easier the more that come, and the more hands there are to help, and the more, love there is. And so it really has been easy and beautiful in every possible way.
I like those words.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Do any of you have any last final thoughts or words before we close?
I just want to thank you, Emily, for these stories, because I every time I put these on and listen, it's a wonderful way to connect. I think the stories are important for people to hear, because I when I first met you and you listened to me, with my story. We walked around that Echo Lake, I don't know how many times, but you were willing to just be there and listen. And it was wonderful. And that was the one you actually mentioned that's when you wanted to start the podcast. And I was like, yes, please, we need more stories. And you did it. And I'm so wonderful, thankful, and proud.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you all for being a part of it. It really just continues to be true, that we learn best through personal narrative. And there's really nothing quite as inspiring to hear other sisters, live to tell the tale of their power and of their choices and of their ups and downs and their victories and their, what's possible, and gosh, I just, there's so many cultures, communities, places around the world that are rapidly losing birth, like normal birth, generations of lineages that are C-sectioned and milk's not coming in. And I mean, just this is happening. We're losing birth, if we see it that way. So this has just been such a fire of hope to watch how this just spreads and to hear all these different stories. And, like Layla, I love how you pointed out that it just kind of, these weren't exactly your words, but that it just kind of occurred to you that you could do this. I love hearing that so much because it proves that this is inside of us and this is the great remembering, and that it doesn't, I meet so many women, in the last couple of years that it just occurred to them, which is very powerful if you stop and think about it. I mean, it's super cool if you come to Free Birth through the podcast or through something else, but how amazing that it just occurs to some women. How special. And that it actually proves the point that this is inside of us and this is ours to claim and to be, should that be in alignment for us.
Thank you, Emily.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing these beautiful stories. I know that they will be deeply enjoyed by many. So thank you. Powerful. Love all of you. Mwah.
Thank you. Love you. Love you, lady.
Bye, everyone.
And that's it for today, my sisters. Check out everything we do, including one-on-one and group coaching, learn about our private membership, in-person retreats, and more on freebirthsociety.com. Our online courses are on freebirthsocietycourses.com, including our flagship course, The Complete Guide to Free Birth. Don't miss the Radical Birthkeeper School if you're ready to become the authentic midwife that women are searching for. Together we rise, and the revolution starts inside each of us. Our opening song is by Shyla Ray. And now I'll leave you with our Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars. Conscious conception.